Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, backed by popular demand, here is the legendary One Fluff. She's safe and sound, and well, she's really glad we're back home. So first up on the docket, we're talking about PlayStation 3 emulation with RPCS3. Now, we talked about RPCS3 just the other day when they teased a couple of big announcements over on YouTube. They were set to premiere yesterday. And well, they unveiled those videos and they didn't disappoint. If you are curious about checking out these showcases on your own, like everything I talk about, link is in the description below right at the bottom. Anyways, they did change the titles after the premieres. One of them now says, RPCS3 now available on ARM64 with native support for Apple Silicon. And the second one here, RPCS3 now running on ARM64 Linux with Raspberry Pi 5. Now, I don't know about you, but to me this is very impressive news. I mean, take a look at RPCS3 running on a Raspberry Pi 5, and well, this to me is incredible. I can't believe the Raspberry Pi 5 can power something like this. Now, obviously, it's not running at 4K or anything like that, but I mean, at the same time here, frame rates like this, looking this smooth, looking this good, rendering this well. I'm completely blown away here. On top of the two showcase videos, they've also got a blog post explaining even more. And again, like everything I talk about, link is in the description below right at the bottom. So they say, future-proofing RPCS3 for the devices of tomorrow for continued preservation. And I mean, we've talked about ARM64 gaining a lot of popularity in the past. And it seems RPCS3 has also taken note here and, well, made it way more compatible. So they say Linux has native ARM64 support, Windows native ARM64 support, and Mac OS with native ARM64 support. Now, there is a ton of information in this blog, so if you wanted to read things at a very technical level, written in a very understandable fashion, I do recommend checking out that article. They've got an entire section about the Raspberry Pi 5, and there is something worth noting here. They say, as what might come as a surprise for many, several PS games are playable on a Raspberry Pi 5, although it will be at a lower resolution. A lot of playable games will not perform well on the Raspberry Pi 5 due to its hardware performance limitations, but we can still push it to its limit to run several games at 30 FPS, rendered at PSP resolution. I think that is worth calling out here because although it will work on a Raspberry Pi 5, it's probably not advisable to pick up a Raspberry Pi 5 thinking it's going to be a PS3 emulation powerhouse. That is not going to be the case. Towards the end of the blog, there's also another section I think is very much worth pointing out, and it's about mobile platforms. So a lot of people will see ARM64 and immediately associate it with mobile devices like Android, and that's completely understandable because mobile phones run on ARM. Anyways, here, don't get your hopes up for an Android port. So they say here, adding ARM64 architectural support is a key step to ensure long-term preservation of the PlayStation 3 console, as ARM64 CPUs make their way into the conventional desktop and laptop market. We are aware it comes with its own disadvantages, such as having to deal with toxic users that have harassed other emulator developers in the past, like the brilliant developers behind Aether SX2, or redistribution of modified builds of an emulator, often violating their FOSS license, while claiming credit for the work they didn't do themselves, as it has already happened with other emulator projects being redistributed in these malicious ways. Now, in my opinion here, none of this stuff should be surprising considering we've talked about it on this channel before. Anyways, they go on to say, we are also aware of the increase of scam applications that portray themselves as a PlayStation 3 emulator while being malware. Again, stuff we've talked about. Or that redistribute RPCS3 under a different name and claim it as a new emulator. Again, stuff we've talked about. Some of them are even vetted in Google's Play Store. Unfortunately, Google haven't acted on the reports we have made, and these scam apps continue to be exposed to users. Again, stuff we've talked about time and time again. Now, I'm going to stop myself before I go on a rant here and just start talking about all of the crap that's on Google Play. Anyways, we'll continue on. They say we are thus reminding once again that there are no other PS3 emulators that can run PS3 games. Any footage you see is either completely fake or recorded on a real console or through RPCS3 itself, and distributed under the claim it's another emulator with a different name. That is worth pointing out. And last here, and I think a lot of people may be upset about this, but you've got to respect the developers' wishes here and what the developers want to work on. I mean, they're doing this for free. So they say, for these reasons, we are disallowing Android and iOS discussion in our communities. We have no intention of porting RPCS3 to these platforms at this time. They don't say never, but they do say at this time. Unfortunately, this blanket decision is ultimately needed due to the high toxicity of several individuals in the Android community who refuse to take no for an answer, some of which have already been banned from our communities. So for everybody hoping for RPCS3 on Android or iOS, and I'm assuming we're going to have to cover this in a future video again, RPCS3 at this point is not heading to Android or iOS, and I don't see it being there anytime in the near future. If they are working on it for Android or iOS, I would assume it is years away. I mean, it's a lot of work here. And just getting it on ARM in the first place, I think is an amazing step for the team. But overall here, I would say this is a huge win for RPCS3 and extremely impressive. I didn't expect ARM compatibility this soon, and I certainly didn't expect RPCS3 to be running this good on a Raspberry Pi 5. Big hat tips to the developers of RPCS3 here for achieving something I think is amazing. Let me know your thoughts about all of this in the comments below. But moving on, and we're still talking about PlayStation emulation, just jumping up one generation and talking about PlayStation 4 emulation with none other than Shad PS4. And Shad PS4 keeps on improving. Even more games are now booting. So over on YouTube, John God Games Emus has a brand new video showcasing a bunch of games booting in Shad PS4, including infamous Second Son and First Light, Ratchet & Clank, Knack, and even more. Now, it is worth pointing out there's a big difference between booting and playable, but at the same time here, this is very impressive. I do recommend giving this video a watch, not to just see how things are booting and the progress of Shad PS4, but also to kind of see behind the scenes. I mean, John God Games Emus boots up games, you can see how games are booting and see how the whole process of Shad PS4 works. But either way here, Shad PS4 is making improvements in leaps and bounds, and Shad PS4 also has a Discord if you wanted to pay even closer attention to it, and they do have a showcase channel showcasing a bunch of games in action. And speaking about PlayStation 4 emulation, next up we're talking about Obliteration, which is another PS4 emulator you don't often hear too much about, but they are working on it. In fact, they're looking for PS5 folks. So they say here over in a post on GitHub, we are looking for PS5 contributors. Our current team is currently focusing on re-implementing the PS4 kernel. And they think the PS5 kernel should be similar to the PS4 kernel. So it appears they are trying to add PS5 support to their kernel. So based on the gist of this post, it appears they're looking for someone with a hackable PS5 to join their team. Now, I don't know if the PS5 kernel is similar to the PS4 kernel, but I guess if it is, they're trying to explore that option. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. We've talked about Obliteration before, and it appears they're going for PS4 and PS5 support. Next up, we're talking about a brand new ROM hack that's just appeared up over on itch.io. If you're a fan of Mario Kart, if you're a fan of Animal Crossing, you may be a fan of this mashup. It's Animal Crossing Kart Deluxe. And they say here it's a response to the mediocre Super Mario Kart ROM hack, Animal Crossing Kart. So this ROM hack of Super Mario Kart attempts to fix some issues that were seen in Animal Crossing Kart, such as no modifications to compress sprites, poor track design, and certain graphic issues. This isn't just a modification. This hack also attempts to introduce 3 characters, add new battle courses for 2 players, new character portrait animations and victory animations, add some new tracks, play the Animal Cup, Special Cup in 50cc, and new CPU orderings for every character. On top of all of that, it also appears there's a blue shell in the game and a golden feather, which will break you into the dancing spirit. Let me know your thoughts about this ROM hack in the comments below. And speaking about itch.io, next up we're still talking about itch.io, and this is even more stuff that has transpired since yesterday's video, the whole controversy between Funko and itch.io. At a high level here, itch.io is a simple way to find and share indie games online for free. And Funko took down this whole website over one thing that apparently they weren't happy with. Now, if you remember, in yesterday's video, we talked about this statement from itch.io. I kid you not, itch.io has been taken down by Funko of Funko Pop because they used some trash AI-powered brand protection software called Brand Shield that created some bogus phishing report to our registrar, I Want My Name, who ignored our response and just disabled the domain. Now, obviously, as you can tell, itch.io is back up. We talked about that in yesterday's video as well. It seems that itch.io took down the offending page and just tried to avoid the whole hassle, but the story doesn't end there. Now, in yesterday's video, I think I mentioned how this wasn't a good look for Funko, amongst other parties as well. But anyways, here Funko has issued a statement. At Funko, we hold a deep respect and appreciation for indie games, indie gamers, and indie developers. We're fans of fans, and we love the creativity and passion that define the indie gaming community. So far so good here. And then they say, recently, one of our brand protection partners identified a page on itch.io, imitating the Funko Fusion development website. A takedown request was issued to address this specific page. Funko did not request a takedown of the itch.io platform, and we're happy the site was back up by this morning. Now for this piece, this is where things get interesting, but we'll continue on reading here. They say we've reached out to itch.io to engage with them on this issue. Also, this is where things get interesting. And we deeply appreciate the understanding of the gaming community as the details are determined. Thank you for sharing in our passion for creativity. They have been hit with community context. So the additional information here provided by readers, the takedown request in question was a fraud and phishing report to the registrar instead of the more usual DMCA request, according to the person who runs Itch. Now, if this is true, I would say this is a very heavy-handed and fraudulent approach to try to get something down off of a website. In my opinion here, if this is true, it was probably their brand protection partner that tried to take a heavy-hand approach to show that they were effective. So based on this information, based on what I'm seeing here, this takedown request that was issued is a little bit misleading. Anyways, on top of that, there's another point here that makes things even weirder. So they say we've reached out to itch.io to engage with them on this issue. Well, it turns out they reached out to the mother of the person who runs itch.io. Now, in fairness, I don't know if this was intentional or unintentional or what was going on here. Who knows? Maybe the owner of itch.io had their mother's phone number listed as the person who owned the website. Again, who knows? Anyways, this is from itch.io's Twitter account. This is not a joke. Funko just called my mom. And there is the text message from their mother. Got a strange call from a company about accusatory statements on your social media account. Call me. Now, based on that situation, I would say that Funko is trying to do some damage control here and desperately at that, and I would say they're also failing at that. I mean, yes, this tweet does say some nice things, but at the same time, I would say it's also misleading based on the information we've seen from both sides. I could be wrong about that, but based on what I'm seeing here, it doesn't seem like I am. And I would say that Funko has probably got their foot in their mouth just a little bit here based on everything that I see going on. So who knows what's going to happen moving forward here? Who knows what's going to happen next? I think this whole ordeal is probably close to being over. I think Funko wants it to be over. I don't think this is a good look for Funko overall. This whole kerfuffle is, well, it's been interesting. Let me know your thoughts about all of this in the comments below, and let me know your thoughts about who looks the worst in all of this. Do you think it's itch.io? Do you think it's Funko? Do you think it's Funko's brand protection partner? Or do you think it's Itch's registrar? I want my name. And speaking about bad looks, next up we're talking about Epic and Fortnite and the FTC. Now, for those who may not be aware, FTC stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or the Federal Trade Commission, depending on how you want to interpret that. Anyways, this headline is right from the FTC's website. FTC sends refund payments to consumers impacted by Epic Games' unlawful billing practices. So the post says the Federal Trade Commission is sending refunds totaling more than $72 million to consumers who were tricked by Epic Games, maker of the popular video game Fortnite, into making unwanted purchases. Now, this really isn't new news per se. I mean, they say here as part of a settlement first announced in December 2022. The FTC obtained an order requiring Epic Games to pay $245 million to resolve allegations that the game maker used design tactics known as dark patterns to trick players into making unwanted purchases, let children rack up unauthorized charges without any parental involvement, and blocked some users who disputed unauthorized charges from accessing their purchased content. So it appears now that the impacted players are finally getting compensated. So they say the FTC is sending its first round of payments in this matter and will distribute additional money at a later date. So there is more to come. Today, the FTC is sending 629,344 total payments, about half of which are PayPal payments and the other half are checks. Consumers selected their payment method when they completed their claim form. Recipients should receive their PayPal payment within 30 days and cash their checks within 90 days as indicated on the check. The average payment is about $114. So I'm guessing here that people who have already submitted a claim form, and maybe it's legitimate or approved or whatever review process they have, will be receiving some sort of payment. Now, if you haven't submitted a claim form, I don't think it's too late here. They say eligible consumers can still submit a claim online. The claim form is available at ftc.gov/Fortnite. Don't know about you, but an average payment of $114 seems pretty nice. But then again, I don't normally buy a whole lot of in-game content. Let me know your thoughts about an average value of $114 and if you think that's sufficient to cover some of the Fortnite payments. Next up, we're talking about a brand new game that has just been revealed and one that has got a lot of people talking. This one is called Covenant. So the reveal trailer just popped up on YouTube, and based on the intro to this trailer, a lot of people are going to have some pretty high expectations. Legion Studios is the one behind this game, and they say they consist of developers from games like Apex Legends, Halo, Destiny, Doom, Call of Duty, and even more. A lot of heavy-hitting games, and well, I'm very curious to see what happens here. This will be a first-person shooter or combat game of sorts and looks very interesting. From my understanding, it's also going to be a Metroidvania Souls-like kind of game. And it seems it's going to be a very fast-paced, very combat-focused game. So let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below and whether or not you'd be interested in a game like this. This is pre-alpha footage and not representative of the final game here. I am really looking forward to this one. I think it's going to be super cool, and I've got some big expectations for it. Now, based on some of the comments on that video, and it appears a lot of people have high expectations as well. This person says, you said you wanted devs from which famous studio again? Yes. You guys better not be lying to us about the quality of this, because a fantasy FPS looks amazing. El Doom Ring, John Wick became a tarnished and I'm here for it. And these developers is like calling the Avengers. And speaking about announcements, next up we're talking about MSI and the new versions of their Claw. So they announced over on Twitter, gear up for unparalleled mobile gaming with the new MSI Claw 8 AI Plus and the Claw 7 8 AI Plus refresh. Now, based on their website, the Claw 7 AI Plus and the 8 AI Plus are powered by the exact same CPU, the Intel Core Ultra 7 258V. One of the big differences here is, well, the overall look and also the storage. The 7 AI Plus features 512 gigs of storage and the 8 AI Plus features 1 terabyte. Additionally here, taking a look at the RAM. So for both the 7 AI Plus and the 8 AI Plus, it's been beefed up from 16 gigs to 32 gigs. And it's now LPDDR5X at 8,533 megahertz. And for some further differences between the 7 and the 8, the 7 obviously has a 7-inch screen here, the 8 has an 8-inch screen. The 7 has a smaller battery, a 6-cell 53 watt-hour battery, where the 8 has a 6-cell 80 watt-hour battery. And I can also see that the 8 has an extra Type-C port, which may come in handy. So anyways, these are not going to be cheap here. The 8 is priced at $899 to pre-order and the 7 is $799. To be honest, $100 extra bucks for this extra stuff may seem worth it. Both versions of the handheld ship out with Windows, and you can always change that later on. It seems they are shipping on January 15th of 2025, and I'm very curious to see how these test out and how they perform versus the current MSI Claw. Let me know your thoughts about this one and if you're interested or if you're going to wait for something else. And speaking about hardware, next up is a friendly heads up if you still have a Stadia controller you haven't converted to Bluetooth. You still have time, or if you find one somewhere for super cheap. Originally, the program was set to shut down on December 31st, 2023, but has since been extended to December 31st, 2025. I haven't tested out one of these controllers yet, but I've been told they aren't too bad. And speaking about hardware, or possibly software, next up here we're talking about Xbox. And this was teased by Xbox UK. I have no idea what this is for. Some people are saying it's going to be new Xbox hardware. Some people are saying it's something like possibly Little Big Planet heading to Xbox. Who knows here? Let me know your thought about this one in the comments below. Next up, we're talking about Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League. Now, this game has been met with its fair share of criticism since launch. It launched on February 2nd of this year, and overall it's got mixed reviews over on Steam. And it turns out it's reaching end of life. So according to an article over on their website here called Season 4 Deep Dive, it appears that Season 4 is the final season for Suicide Squad. And they are implementing an offline mode effective December 10th, which is today. Now, I know this game has been met with a lot of different criticisms, and I would say having an offline mode to start would have been probably a smart idea. Anyways, here, let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. If you've played this game, if you've enjoyed it, and what are your thoughts about this game ending? And last up here, we're talking about a pretty big announcement and a pretty cool announcement from Raspberry Pi. They've announced two brand new products, the Raspberry Pi 500 and the Raspberry Pi Monitor, both on sale now. So the Raspberry Pi 500 is basically an upgraded version of the Raspberry Pi 400. Instead of a Raspberry Pi 4, it's a Raspberry Pi 5 under the hood. Now for the monitor, it's a 15.6-inch Full HD IPS panel with a 45% color gamut and an 80-degree viewing angle. So this will be 1080p. They paired that together with a pair of 1.2 watt speakers. Now, I don't know about you, but I would say the pricing here is pretty attractive. The Pi 500 is priced at $90. The monitor is priced at $100. The Pi 400, which is a Raspberry Pi 4, has been reduced from $70 to $60. And the Pi 400 personal computer kit from $100 down to $80. So let me know your thoughts about all of this stuff in the comments below. I think one of the very convenient things about the monitor is that it can be powered directly from a Raspberry Pi. You don't need a separate power supply, provided you're okay with a maximum of 60% brightness. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and the legendary one fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.